Hi there. This is the last of the videos that we'll have for this week. I changed position, so if you look behind me, you can see nothing because it's dark. Anyhow, there's actually a beautiful uh, wetlands behind me. So I wanted to talk about this last piece, which is called the three-column page layout. And actually, this is probably what we should be aspiring for as we create our websites. So if we look at the wireframe here, we have our container. We've talked about that. Then we have our header, and then we have the navigation bar, a floating navigation bar on the left, and then a floating column bar on the right, and then our main and then our footer. So if you look at the website here, this is what it's supposed to look like. It's very pretty. And actually, I know Door County because I'm from Wisconsin. Okay, so enough of that. So there's a couple of things here to note. That the container sets the default background, the color, the texture, whatever it's going to be. We've talked about this before, the container. And, there's the two things of the container. There's the cover and the container. So the container is going to be the entire screen layout. Then the left column navigation bar is floating, and it's got a width of 150 pixels. That's just what they determined it to be. And the right one, notice it's floating to the right, float right, with a width of 200 pixels because it's a little larger. And the column uses the remaining screen room to be able to fill it up. And then we have the footer, which clears the float on both sides. So, and as I said before, the header goes all the way across the page. So there's several different ways to do this. Creating an external style sheet, which we've been doing before, which will do two things. It will allow that to be for all of the pages, but also it will allow it to be able to create a page just for print. So let's first talk about creating the three-column page. So I'm going to get out of this, and I'll go to my text editor. Here it is. And what are we going to look at here? We're going to look at, I fooled around with this for a bit. We're going to look at that particular wildflower Door County webs that you saw. So let's just look. This one, I'm gonna zoom in a bit. Okay, maybe I'm gonna zoom in a bit. There we go. Hopefully you can see this. This time you're going to be able to see that here we have our basic header information, as we always do, and we start with our body. And notice style. So this, now we know this is an embedded style. This isn't using a CSS style sheet, but this works just fine. Okay, so the container, which we talked about, that outside piece is going to be some kind of a color of, I believe it's blue. And it talks about the background color. It talks about any kind of color of text, the width and the text style. Okay, the header, which we are very familiar with, is going to have, this particular color. It's going to have an image background of this particular URL, and it's going to be have the position, background position bottom. So, and it's going to say repeat yes. And that would make sense because if we look at this one, it's just flowers, so you can't really tell where they begin or end. So that one makes it very easy to repeat. All right, so if we go back to this, our header, repeat X, color, okay, padding, just kind of tells you all of those things. And those are the things you have to work with to be able to figure out what works for what you're trying to do, and you have to customize it to your picture. Okay, the navigation, it's floating left, and then here we go. Once again, let's just kind of look where our navigation is. Here's our navigation. It's floating here to the left, floating to the left, and it's 150 pixels wide. And then aside it, floating to the right, 200 pixels, which is the other side. All right. And then the main. So the navigation was what we are calling our left. The aside was what we're calling our right. And the main is just our main content page and the footer. All right. So far, nothing too tricky, right? Nothing too tricky at all. Our heading, this is setting all of the different things that we want for our heading, that we want how much margin, the font size. We're going to have our header, a link, a visited color. We're going to bring in this color. We're going to have some special like hover because we want to be able to hover and do things. So that's what that a hover command is. And these are things you can play with, all right? Our navigation is an unordered list. And you're going to see this, the list style, none. And text decorations, none. So that means it's not going to have anything too tricky so that we're going to be able to print it. All right, let's go on. These are some few other things with our style sheet. So our floating right, we talk about what that's going to look like. We have something that we identify called news, which if you remember correctly looking at this news, this information here is being determined as news. All right, so that kind of helps you understand those pieces. All right, this particular part here where it has this exclamation mark, this is just a comment. It doesn't have anything to do with any kind of code, so it's nothing to worry about, nothing you have to be concerned with. It's just a comment. And that's just saying if you're using Internet Explorer 9, there's certain things you have to do. All right, onward. So first we create a container, and within the container we have our banner, which is the Door County Wildflower header. So let's look at it again. Door County. All right, because it's in the container. The container is the entire piece. All right. Then we go to the navigation roles, and here we identify all of the different navigations that are going to be on the left-hand side. The nav role, navigation. And if you recall, up here, we identified the nav, which is the float left with. And here we have, we have the nav. Role equals navigation. All right, and then there's a picture, and as you note, as you can see the picture, it's just within the content of the page, and you could make that float left or right if you wanted to. And then this is all the navigation piece of it, okay? So this was the navigation. And then here we get to let's see, this is the aside role. So we would have to go back up here and see aside. This was our float right, because we identified all these things here. So our aside, this is our aside role. And this is where we put in the pieces about the ridge. We have the links. And then we have the content that we use just for the middle of the page. The ecosystem supports, a lot of things within Door County. And then we have the copyright at the end. So the main here is where our main content all kind of falls together. And we have the two side columns. So if we look then at our page, here it is, our header with our repeating border image, our navigation. Here was that picture that we had. This was the main part where there was an image. So if we look here to see this image, on our main, we should see, here's the image, the trillion image, okay? And, here was the other piece. And as you see, it was all set up in the style page, and then here's the copyright. So that gives you a sense of how you do the 3-column web page. The one other thing that I want to talk about is if you want to make it so that you could print it without printing all of the pictures and things. So in order to do that, it's actually quite simple. And if we go to our PowerPoint here, we create the external style sheet with the configurations. And we we have both of these. We connect both of the external style sheets to this page, both of them, and that's the difference. One is the media, the screen, and that's what we just saw, and then the other one is the print. So, for example, in our situation here, this one has two style sheets set up, and actually this one does not. So let's go to the print. I'm telling you a fib. So if we go to the print one, open, bear with me, print, here's the index, open. Nope, it's not this one. Sorry. Let's close this one. Let's open another one. Open. You see that it's got these two links. This is what I wanted to show you. Zoom in. And as we look at them, it has both links. The link just for the screen and then the link for the print. All right. And what do you notice differently? You don't see all of that style embedded within this particular page. So I'm going to add I will add these to your Canvas page as well. So hopefully now you've been able to get the basic concepts of Chapter 7. And at this point, I will put down an assignment that I'd like for you to be able to do, which involves creating a 3-column website, very similar to the Door County website that you saw. So hopefully this helped. Thank you so much, and I'll look forward to seeing what you produce later. Bye-bye.